follow the agenda, which asks us to review the September meeting minutes.
Right. So if anyone saw anything that was left out of the minutes or anything that needs to be changed, just let me know and I'll be glad to make that update.
Well, on the first line, you have my name as Carola Davis.
Okay, so correct the spelling of Carol Davis's name.
If you just take that extra A, I mean, Corolla sounds nice, but if you just take that extra.
And after I correct that, do you want a full email apology or just like a short email apology?
Short will be fine.
Okay, I'll send that your way.
Something has to be done. That's just it.
All right, that'll be fixed. Does anyone else have any changes? Oh, my apologies.
Anything further? Any comments, any changes, any? If not, may I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Darnella?
Second.
So the motion's been has been made and seconded to approve the minutes of our September meeting. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Did Darnell say anything?
Okay.
Oh, all right. Thank you. Then the motion's been passed unanimously. And we move on to the second item on our agenda, which is a new rehab request for 1407 West Academy Street. You all received the application?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Any discussion necessary about this? It appears they have, is it three estimates? They had requested 3 estimates to choose from.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
And there's a diagram showing the windows that are being replaced.
Yep, it's a pretty straightforward. It's pretty straightforward rehab request. There's basically just replacing a few busted windows, and I think there was only 2 major sections of the building that needed this work done.
Yeah, thanks for that, Stephen. I was going to ask if staff had anything particularly noteworthy to bring to our attention compared to other rehab applications. Sounds pretty straightforward.
It is. I think, Ken, if you're around, did you have anything you wanted to add about this rehab request?
Sure, and good afternoon to all the members of the committee. This is a pretty typical of the building rehab application project. It was competitively bid. There was some consideration given by the property owner, and they are going with the contractor that was the lowest bid. At the time this item was prepared, they were going in a different direction. That's since changed. But just as a layer of detail here, when the internal review committee approves this project, that group includes the chief building official for the city. And as part of their endorsement of the project, they ensure that not only does the project itself meet the intent of the building rehabilitation program, but they also give their opinion as to whether or not the contractor selected to do the work is qualified to do the work. So this project meets all those thresholds. All of the contractors here were qualified for it. It was simply the owners going with the lowest qualified bid.
Thanks. And just triple checking that the business is currently open and operating. Right.
It is, yes. I will note, Justin, that this program is for the property owner rather than for the business owner. Here, it happens to be the same. The business owns, the owner of the property also owns the business. But this program, I know you're asking about this case in particular, but in theory, a building can be vacant and apply for these same funds. So an operating, occupied business or storefront is not required in order to be eligible.
Thank you.
Now, the after the property owner gets the work done, there is, they do have a carrot, to keep the property up for 3 years. And because that's what turns, it makes it so that the funds aren't paid back. So there is that's part of the program in case you weren't aware.
That's a great point, Stephen. That this is one of those when we're always very careful when we talk about this program that we don't use the word grant. It is a deferred forgivable loan. So conditions have to be met. And one of those is maintaining ownership of the property. For this particular program, it's 3 years. For the downtown program, it's 5 years. But yes, so there will be loan documents that are signed before funds are dispersed. Inspections does sign off that the work has been performed satisfactorily. But Stephen's exactly right. It is, it's intentionally done that way.
Very good.
Okay, no further discussion. If everybody's satisfied, can I get a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the rehab project.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded that we approve the rehab project application for Yates Carpet Cleaners. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? None opposed. All right, Stephen, you have anything else for us to do?
Yes. So I think the last thing is that I'll share with. Again, we have the review of the loan package requirements. So I'll just read from the email that I sent you all a few weeks ago. Staff is evaluating our financial assistance programs for potential enhancements or efficiencies. We'd like to include your input on the small business loan program, particularly when it comes to the items/documentation included in a loan request package. It currently includes a business plan, projected financials, financial statements, personal financial statement, and personal credit report if it for certain borrowers, tax returns for 3 years, collateral, documentation demonstrating need, and there are other things as well as you've seen in packages. But what we'd like to do is to get your feedback, to hear your thoughts on, on these materials, maybe what kinds of materials you'd like to see, what which of these materials you'd like to see more focus on from those applying. If there's any additional documentation that you would think would add value to these loan requests, or if there's possibly even if there's something here that you don't need to see, just whatever. Really don't want to try to box in, what you can deliver on this in this discussion. Just wanted to gauge your thoughts and feelings on it. So just let us know.
One question I had or thought about possible review with the small business loan program, and y'all let me know if you think it's a good idea or a bad idea, but I wonder with each process that comes through or each application, the documentation that's part of the loan request package I'm in favor of everything that exists currently, I believe. I wonder if it's feasible or needed to look at a third party or independent, and it could be done by city staff or someone else. I get a quick, nothing too crazy, not a 100-page report, but a brief kind of market analysis. I'll pick on mattress stores. If a mattress store or someone who wants to open a mattress store comes to us for a loan application, and it's deemed that there's already 833 mattress stores in Winston-Salem, and Winston-Salem has a population of 250,000 people and 134 square miles. So therefore, there's already a mattress store every 0.25 miles. And given the current population, we can sustain X number of mattress stores. I guess that might be helpful in reviewing the specific business or industry type that's coming forth, to help gauge it'd be one factor in looking at potential, how difficult it might be or might not be in that business venture being successful here within the city of Winston-Salem.
Well, usually if the business plan is complete, that's supposed to be part of the business plan, but yes. And you want to have it like an independent analysis. Right.
If I was submitting a business loan application, I would, the reports and data I would be using would be obviously as favorable, while still accurate, painting as favorable a picture as possible for my business to get the loan. So I don't know if there is. I just bring it up for discussion. If an independent, quicker review might be helpful.
Well, I know that there's something that I can do that would be. I'm not saying that I'm not limiting the ideas to this, but there is one step that I personally can take, and that is that I work closely with all the people that apply for this program, and I would be more than happy to put pressure, put a little bit of add some more guidance, and just emphasize that market analysis of the type that you're looking for is something that the committee would find a lot of value in, and also to make sure that there's that they don't sense as much spin on it as as someone might be inclined to put. That's just one simple step that we could take there. The idea of having some sort of third party is it's not completely out of the question. I mean, I could understand the value of that, but I can speak to something that I personally can do, as the administrator of this program, and that would be emphasizing it. I mean, that's something that I do anyway, gauging y'all's expectations, based on my experience talking to you in all of our meetings. And that comes up quite a bit when I'm reviewing people's business plans and the materials. Now, whether they listen to me or not, that's a whole different story.
Right.
I can only really do so much there. But
I like the idea of a market analysis. It gives you a glimpse as to a few things, and even the fact that the applicant is knowledgeable about what else is out there and where their competition lies. So I think that's a good idea.
It's Ken again. I think that's a good suggestion. I think as always, we're trying to balance the accessibility of the program with expectations of the committee, with what a small, independent, typically mom and pop type business owner is capable of producing, that doesn't make the project, not just the project make it unfeasible, but going to committee feasible. So for instance, I think there are business organizations in town that have resources that can assist with a high level market analysis that's different from hiring a consulting firm for, I have no idea what it costs, $5,000, who knows, to conduct that third party, would create a financial barrier to our program. I do think if I were a business owner, I would take a look at that not as an additional step, an additional hurdle, but as something that's going to help give a view to me of this business that I wouldn't otherwise have. It will be a part of the educational process for me. So I do think there's a way to make that work without becoming overly burdensome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ken, that's a good point. I agree that there are, organizations out there that are trusted, where the individual or whoever is coming forth with the application can utilize some of the resources they have to just ensure that, the committee is fully aware, the loan applicant is fully aware, city staff is fully aware of whichever industry type the application might be for, that we're all on the same page, kind of with a base level of foundational knowledge about whatever type of business is coming forth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't mean for, it's a good way. I didn't mean for that burden to rest on the applicant to go buy a $10,000 study.
Right. Or just based on the mattress factory study, you can say they can just list all of the other mattress stores around and say there's some here, there's 42 mattress stores in the area or something like that. But just some type of analysis of that they're aware of what else is out there that's doing maybe what they're doing.
And I think to Stephen's point, that the encouragement that comes from staff, I distinctly recall an application from a good while ago, from years ago, for a restaurant downtown that, as part of their market analysis, which was just very, 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 very surface level, it said something along the lines of, there are no other XYZ type restaurants downtown, so we have no competition. That's not what that means. Every food option downtown or in the city or within an X mile radius is going to be your competition. So I think we're always able to give that guidance that can help the applicants understand that this is really what we mean, to ensure that y'all as the committee are getting the level of detail that helps you make a decision. And I think that's the other balancing act of this, is we know that in order for you to make a decision without having the applicant return to the committee, multiple times, that what helps that is us being able to provide you the highest level of detail the first time around. So being able to do that, while not burdening the applicant without making them say, oh, well, heck, this is so much work, it's not worth it. one, I think that's very telling, but it's depending on where that threshold is of that perception of too much work. So I just wanted to toss out there that sort of our encouragement of the level of detail is really part of what we've always done.
So these requirements would be the same for a startup versus an existing business?
They are right now. Do you have some thoughts you'd like to share on that?
Well, I'm kind of remembering an opportunity where we asked a loan applicant to bring us some contracts so we could see that the business actually had some clients lined up that were going to pay him for his services. And I know that's something we haven't always asked for.
Well, right now, the program is, the way it's situated is it does allow either startups or business expansions to request funding. But when it comes to documentation that we request of people, per the guidelines, we don't really have too much of a difference. The one big difference is that if you're an existing business, you have to show the previous year's financial, either a profit loss or a cash flow. But if you have some ideas on, some different ways that we could approach the materials that are needed for existing businesses versus startups, that sounds like something that would be, a great idea to discuss.
As the non-voting government person on the committee, let me just read you the basic financial underwriting that CDBG has, which is the program that funds this, the funding that funds this program. So projects we must show that the project costs are reasonable, that all sources of project financing are committed, that to the extent practicable, CDBG funds are not substituted for non-federal financial support, that the project is financially feasible, that to the extent practicable, the return on the owner's equity investment will not be unreasonably high, and that to the extent practicable, CDBG funds are dispersed on a pro rata basis with other finances provided to the project. I mean, so those are like the minimal type requirements we have to meet. And I think the one somebody just brought up about needing contracts, that was to show the project was financially feasible. If I'm remembering the correct one, there was an issue with whether he actually could do what he said he was going to do. And then we also have some expenditure deadlines, so it helps if we don't make it too cumbersome that we can't do any loans because we do need to spend the money. So that's my government perspective.
Thank you, Diane.
Yes, I think what we usually ask for is reasonable. I do know some people are challenged by creating a full business plan. We see the quality of those plans vary widely, but I think it is reasonable to request it. And I don't have any specific changes to recommend.
I think we definitely need those financial projections. We seem to focus on those. And sometimes what is on them, they're hard to understand because people do them a little bit differently. But is your business going to survive for 3 years or make money, or are you going to be able to repay the city?
Right, and that's something that we try to give people a little bit of flexibility on, how they present that material. But that flexibility, might be a detriment. Might be Diane, it sounds like you might be saying that it might be a good idea for us to say, you know what, show us exactly this on this type of table.
Well, I may need a little bit of technical assistance or training probably could help some, just to make sure I know what I'm looking at. But also types of businesses like a restaurant where you've got businesses that have cost of goods sold is different from other, like a service business where, it's just revenue and then minus all these different expenses that sometimes is, makes it harder to do comparable or all the same across the board.
I do try to warn people off of, the type of financial projections where it looks like they just printed something out of QuickBooks, and it has 40 pages of mostly zeros and that sort of thing. That's you guys have seen that a few times, I think. But I have a couple of templates that I give people, and I always recommend that they use those. But I'd hate to restrict the artistic creativity of some of our more graphically inclined submissions. But again, if making it more standardized is something that you all would be interested in, that's something I'd find very interesting, that type of discussion.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's good to know that you do at least provide a kind of couple of base templates for them to use, and if they want to go above and beyond that, as some of them do, then they do that. But some sort of standardization might be helpful in realizing that there is going to be differences. Like Dan mentioned, a service-based industry versus retail versus, other types. I guess as long as there's a minimum baseline of information that all of the financial statements have.
Well, right now they have to provide at least 3 years of financial projections. We encourage cash flow, but I think we allow either cash flow or profit loss, and up to 5 years of projections that are that don't necessarily have to show month by month, but we do want at least 1 year of month by month, and up to 3 years month by month, if depending on the type of business, and then up to 5 years of the yearly projections. So it is it's not very standardized, but there are some basics that we have people do. I usually encourage businesses such as restaurants and any type of business where on Sunday morning they're doing the tally for the week, and that's their big day. Any type of business where I have they have that type of focus, I tell them to throw a weekly projection in there too, just to show what a business week might look like. But that being said, that's just me telling you what sort of the little swirl of things that are both required and suggested at the moment for financial projections. But if there is something specific that should be standardized, I'd be interested in hear that.
I'm trying to remember, was there a job creation requirement with these loans?
Yes, there is. Diane is really familiar with it. And do you want to talk about it, Diane? I know it, but I kind of want to pass this off to you.
Yeah, the policy that we came up with, it's one job per $35,000 of loan amount. So if they're borrowing under 35, then they would have to create one full-time equivalent job. And the jobs must be held by low and moderate income. Well, in theory, they must be held by low and moderate income people. We had the NRSA, and so the jobs are the program is open to businesses who locate in a certain geographic area of Winston-Salem. And because of the demographic characteristics of the area, it was low income enough that you could just count the people. We changed the boundaries of the area so it doesn't, Stephen was going to, and Ken, we're going to look at some program changes, but if they are not in that area as it currently exists, then the owner has to show us with, he has to show that the employees are low income, which is not something a business would typically want to do, to ask their employees their income and, you know, get documentation or a certification form or something. But
and do you know about how that, like what that looks like in other areas that use CDBG funds? Like, do they, have you ever looked, has that ever come up?
I don't think we've looked. No,
Okay.
Not much. No, our geographic area was very large, and it had told us we had to shrink it. So it shrunk a lot, which then made the program a little bit more difficult to attract businesses, I think.
But it shrunk so much it split into two areas, I think.
And it's split in two areas, or it has a very small bridge between the two if you really want to be.
Right. Oh yeah, that's right. It does have a little bridge. Well, thank you, Diane. Yeah, so there is a job creation requirement, and you know it's one full time for every $35,000 that's requested. The second you request $36,000, you got to produce 2 full-time equivalent jobs, and that can be also, I believe, 2 part-time jobs adds up to 1 full-time equivalent position as well. In the past, we've also considered the owner manager position to be a full-time position. I think it gets a little funny when you start talking about created versus retained and that sort of thing. But, you know, most of the small businesses that we have no problem meeting that job creation requirement. I think typically, you know, consultancies where, you know, it's just one person, you know, requiring a lot of funding to do consulting, or some sort of tech type job where you have, you know, 2 people who are doing, you know, a large amount of work that need, you know, much more than say $70,000 of funding. That's where you'd run into issues with that. And we haven't had too many of those requests. Most of the ones we have a robust part-time staffing and then at least a few manager spots. So that sort of easily clears that hurdle. I think we've if you looked at the number of jobs that we've created, it's probably a multiple times the minimum amount that we need to for HUD, I would say. Kind of went on and on there. I'm sorry. You guys feel free to ask some more questions.
I'm trying to think if there's ever a circumstance where somebody might not have 3 years of tax returns, you know, for a legitimate reason. Does that ever come up?
Yeah, I think I did have one. I think I had one person that outright refused to give me more than 1 year. And so they didn't progress. They didn't progress further in the loan program. I don't know why that happened, but I do recall it coming up one time. But that's it. And it was a little suspicious, I suppose is the word I would use.
We've had a couple people who owed taxes to the IRS. They were on a plan. And I'm not sure if that came up through their tax return or if it came up through the application that tells all their assets and liabilities. That form is good. Because it said, do you owe debts or something? And if it says IRS, then that was a huge red flag.
We've had a few that have come up in, you know, during the closing process as well. Whenever the city attorney's office, you know, looks into sort of what's on the public record, that sort of thing. But that is currently not part of the process before it gets to the committee. You know, it's, I think we do have to balance a little bit with, you know, how much staff time is invested in the loans before we actually know whether they'll be approved or not, or even get to the committee. You know, I've had a lot of loans that looked like they were about to get to y'all, and then something happened and they didn't. So that's not an unusual thing to happen. We did have a couple of things come up through the credit report as well, which has been very useful to share with you all. Although that one is pretty onerous when it comes to the physical package. It's usually a mighty stack of things. Well, do y'all have any other thoughts about the materials that we, get to you? And, have you ever been leafing through a loan package and thought, I wish this had blah, blah, blah in it? That's the kind of sort of prompt I'd like to throw out at you right now.
A crystal ball, you mean, to see if they're gonna be successful and pay the money back? A crystal ball would be nice.
Well, I think that I can have them include their astrological signs and that sort of thing, if you like.
Now, this also looks it's fairly close to what a lot of grant applications, what I'm seeing now, grant applications for small businesses. This is really typical of what I'm seeing in those kinds of applications as well.
Yeah, the documents that we request, they do, if they're provided correctly and honestly and accurately, they can give you a pretty good view of what shape it's going to take, the request. Mm-hmm.
I think you've got it covered.
All right. Well, this is, we are missing 2 people from the committee, so it may be that this could be worth bringing up, down the road if we have additional committee members that are interested in talking about it. Also, if you have ideas, feel free to reach out to me. As always, Stephen Harrison, City of Winston-Salem Small Business Development Specialist, is here for you. If you need a shoulder to cry on or someone to chat with, feel free to give me a call. I really appreciate the discussion you all have had. I would never have thought of a couple of these things, so I'm grateful that you brought them up.
All right. So,
thank you, Stephen.
Any other business? Thank you. Yes, thank you, Stephen, for the work that you do, making these loans possible, bringing them to us. I know sometimes it's like pulling teeth to get information.
Right.
And so, stay the course.
I'll get you guys some more loans here pretty soon. I got a feeling there's a few. I'm reeling a few fish right now. I just gotta tease them a little bit, make sure that they come in properly.
All right. Any other business? Anything else for the good of the order? If not, shall I call for adjournment?
Hold us out, Carol.
Yes, ma'am.
Adjourn? Okay.
You are the senior committee member who's in.
How about that? That's hard to believe.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.